Hello, I'm Dr. Mark Darcy, and in today's episode of the Science on the Edge podcast, I'm going to be discussing the endosymbiotic theory. That is the currently accepted theory that describes how eukaryotic cells, that's cells such as the ones that I'm made of, you're made of, all animals, plants, and even fungi are made of, originated from prokaryotic progenitors. So let's get started. Okay, so the endosymbiotic theory. So this is a scientific theory that explains the evolution of eukaryotic cells from simpler, although simpler is a very ambiguous term. Let's just say earlier prokaryotic cells. And prokaryotic cells evolved first. They were on the planet for quite a long time before eukaryotic cells emerged. And by quite a lot of time, I mean billions of years. This theory proposes that eukaryotic cells evolved from the symbiotic relationship between different types of prokaryotic cells. So prokaryotic cells, bacteria, archaea, that kind of thing, they basically merged to form the eukaryotic cells. So prokaryotic cells are simple cells. They're cells without a nucleus. Prokaryotes, prokaryon from the Greek, literally means before nucleus. So prokaryotic cells don't have a nucleus. The DNA is a sort of circular structure that just sort of floats around in the liquid or the cytoplasm of the cell. Eukaryotic cells, though, have a nucleus, and the DNA is inside that. Now, prokaryotes also do not have these membrane-bound organelles. Think of an organelle in a cell almost like an organ in an organism. So we have a heart, liver, kidneys, etc., that perform various tasks in our body, and cells have organelles that perform specific tasks. Now, prokaryotes do have organelles, for example, the ribosome, which makes protein, but it's a very simple organelle. They don't have membrane-bound organelles. Eukaryotes, however, do. So prokaryotes include bacteria and archaea. They're smaller than eukaryotes generally, with few organelles. In terms of eukaryotic cells, they're more complex generally, certainly larger than prokaryotic cells, and have a nucleus, where the DNA is, and many membrane-bound organelles, such as the endoplasmic reticulum, the Golgi apparatus, and lysosomes, each of which performs a different task. If you want to know what tasks these organelles perform, then you might want to check out my episode on cell structure. Just scroll through the videos and you'll find it. So the endosymbiotic theory proposes that these eukaryotic cells evolve from the symbiotic relationship between different types of prokaryotic cells. This theory was proposed by the American biologist Lynn Margulis in the 60s. And at the time, it was not accepted. It was considered to be just ridiculous that two different types of cell could merge together, and that's how eukaryotes arose. But in recent years, it has become widely accepted, mainly due to the huge amount of evidence for it. So mitochondria, they are known as the powerhouses of the cell. Now, these organelles, which are only contained in eukaryotic cells, perform aerobic respiration. That means they can use oxygen to generate energy in the form of ATP. They're believed to have originated from aerobic bacteria that were engulfed by a large anaerobic cell, an archaeal cell. Archaeal cells are much larger than most prokaryotes, not dissimilar in size to eukaryotic cells. But these primitive archaea would just live in anaerobic conditions and survive by eating prokaryotes, other prokaryotes, I should say. It's believed that at some point, one of these archaea swallowed a aerobic bacteria, which then would normally have been digested in the lysosome, the stomach of the cell. But this didn't happen for some reason. Perhaps there was a mutation in the archaea or some sort of resistance in this prokaryotic cell. So instead of being digested, it took up home in the archaea. Now, whilst in the archaea, it benefited from having a nice, warm home and a transport vessel to carry it around, full of nutrients. Now, the archaea benefited too, because archaea could not generate anywhere near as much energy as this aerobic bacteria. So the aerobic bacteria gave the archaea energy, the archaea gave the aerobic bacteria a home, and together they both became stronger, and this symbiotic relationship continued. As the cell grew and divided, the aerobic bacteria grew and divided too, and was passed to the daughter cells. This cell, this aerobic bacteria, eventually became totally dependent on the archaea, and the archaea totally dependent on it. And it became the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell, which is what gives eukaryotes so much energy. So this symbiotic relationship allowed the anaerobic cell to generate much more energy, which led to the evolution of the first eukaryotic cells. But this didn't just happen once. It's also believed that the chloroplasts, which generate energy from sunlight in plant cells, which are also eukaryotes, originated from a photosynthetic bacteria, perhaps something similar to an algae. So they're believed to have originated from photosynthetic bacteria that were again engulfed by a larger eukaryotic cell, which had already obtained the mitochondria. Plant cells also have mitochondria. This symbiotic relationship allowed the eukaryotic cell to produce its own energy from sunlight, which led to the evolution of plants. At first, there was just one type of eukaryotic cell, which was neither plant nor animal, but later they split. So what's the evidence for this theory? Well, there's lots of evidence. So the evidence includes the fact that mitochondria and chloroplasts both have their own DNA within them, and it's circular DNA, the same as prokaryotic DNA. And also, it's not wrapped around proteins known as histone proteins, which the eukaryotic DNA, the DNA in the chromosomes, is. They also reproduce independently of the cell, similar to bacteria. They also have their own ribosomes, the mitochondria and the chloroplasts, which are very similar to the prokaryotic ribosomes rather than the eukaryotic ribosomes that are contained in the cytoplasm of the cell. There's lots of evidence, similarities in cell membranes and the size. Mitochondria and a chloroplast, they're similar in size to bacteria. They have double membranes, many similarities. Now, other organelles in eukaryotic cells may have also originated from the symbiotic relationship between prokaryotic cells, such as the flagella and cilia, but this is more debatable. The mitochondria and the chloroplasts, however, they almost certainly originated from prokaryotes. They're the same size as prokaryotes, they have the same membrane structure, the same ribosomes, the same DNA, and there are many other commonalities. There are alternative theories, however, such as the serial endosymbiosis theory and the syntrophy hypotheses. These theories propose alternative mechanisms for the evolution of eukaryotic cells, but there is nowhere near the same body of evidence as there is for the endosymbiotic theory. In terms of implications, the endosymbiotic theory has important implications for our understanding of evolution and the diversity of life on Earth. It helps explain the development of complex organisms from simpler organisms and the origins of key features like photosynthesis and respiration. And it seems to be a pivotal point in evolution. Prokaryotes were around for a while before eukaryotes emerged. And the energy generated by eukaryotic cells was probably a spur for them later to become multicellular. And we wouldn't have the diversity of life on this planet that we currently have without the development of multicellular organisms, although there was a gap between those 2 points. So to conclude, the endosymbiotic theory is a widely accepted theory that explains the evolution of eukaryotic cells from simpler prokaryotic cells, the fusing of archaea with aerobic bacteria, and then in the case of plants, with photosynthetic bacteria, and then the joining of those two cells into one. Proposes that mitochondria and chloroplasts were once independent bacteria that were engulfed by larger cells, leading to the development of complex eukaryotic organisms. Okay, thank you very much for listening. This has been a nice short one for once. If you would like to find out more about me, then you can follow me on Twitter. My handle is @MarkOfTheD. Thank you for now, and I look forward to speaking to you again next time. Goodbye.